Hey Eagle fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now. And today, which is a couple days before the final 53-man roster comes out for the Philadelphia Eagles, which is Saturday, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my final prediction. Yes, we did this just a couple of weeks ago, but some things have changed. So this is my surefire, 100% accurate, maybe, 53-man roster projection for Philadelphia. Because again, they got to cut down a bunch of players to get down to 53 starting on Saturday. So let's go and jump right into the quarterbacks. And this one is obvious. Carson Wentz, Nate Sudfeld, and Jalen Hurts are all going to make the final 53-man roster. The more quarterbacks you have on your team, the better in the COVID times that we, of course, live in. Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback number 3 for now. He got a lot of reps in training camp, but still was out-repped by Nate Sudfeld, according to multiple reports, and so I'll put Sudfeld at 2, but as a lot of us know, if something, heaven forbid, knock on wood, were to happen to Carson Wentz, it would be Hurts stepping in and not Nate Sudfeld. I think everyone can basically agree and understand that. Although Carson Wentz is the best quarterback the Eagles have had in a very long time. He's going to be fantastic this year, so don't even worry about that. Like I said, though, before we keep going here, we will be doing the roster breakdown when it comes out on Saturday, so this is my prediction. When it actually comes out, we'll break down who was cut, who made the roster, where they are on the depth chart, all of that on Saturday. So be sure to subscribe to Philadelphia Eagles Now, the way you guys are ready and notified whenever that drops. Probably earlier on, by midday on Saturday, that video will go ahead and go out. Running backs, again, not a lot of change here. Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Corey Clement, and Elijah Holyfield. Holyfield is guaranteed to make the final roster. There is just no way that Killings or even Michael Warren, two of the undrafted free agent running backs that a lot of people were very excited about, where it's just not going to happen. There's just no way that they're going to go ahead and make the roster over Elijah Holyfield, because he's been an absolute beast in training camp. And with Miles Sanders and Boston Scott obviously being sidelined for a portion of training camp, Sanders more so, Holyfield has been with the number ones and getting a lot of reps overall. We talked about this just a couple of days ago here on the show. So a great UGA career. And really is going to get his first chance to be not obviously a starter in Philadelphia, but he's going to be a big rotational running back on the Eagles. So 4 of them will be kept. They're going to use all 4, even though it will be a Miles Sanders-led rushing attack. They're going to go ahead and let Scott, Clement, and Holyfield battle it out probably once the season starts to see who will get the rest of the season's number 2 running back reps. I'm curious who you guys think will be the number 2 running back. I've kind of flip-flopped. At first, I thought it'd be Boston Scott, and then I thought it'd be Corey Clement. I'm kind of leaning towards Elijah Holyfield right now, because he's kind of the bruiser banger versus the quick elusiveness of Miles Sanders. Kind of be a fun 1-2 punch. But let me know what you guys think. Type C down below for Clement, type S down below for Scott, and type H down below for Elijah Holyfield. 7 wide receivers. I think this one is going to be very, very easy. Obviously, Jackson, Reagor, and Greg Ward are going to be your top 3. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside at 4. They will, of course, have Hightower in there. Watkins, I said earlier when I did this a couple of weeks ago, he'd be practice squad, but he's played well enough. He's going to make the team. And I think the final wide receiver who's played the best in terms of a bubble wide receiver is Deontay Burnett. Burnett's been all over the football field and been pretty good so far in training camp. So I think he's going to go ahead and take that 7th roster spot. Now, Watkins or Burnett will be bumped down if Alshon Jeffrey comes back sooner rather than later. So we're waiting to see what Alshon Jeffrey is going to do, if he's going to be on the PUP list, if he's not going to be on the PUP list. I think he's going to start on the PUP list, meaning he's going to miss some games to start the season. We've heard otherwise, but Jeffrey obviously will take somebody's roster spot whenever he comes back. They got to move things around. And I would bet Watkins or Burnett, whoever is used less or whoever, produces less until Alshon Jeffrey comes back, is probably going to be the guy that would make a lot of sense. Before we keep going, go ahead and pick up your Eagles official face mask. And they've been adding a bunch of stuff to this list in terms of, we started off talking about the one face mask and then the multiple different variations that they had on that now. They now have the 1-pack. They have the neck sleeve as well, which is a big fan of a lot of people that I know. You get a 2-pack with Carson Wentz. You get a 3-pack with, of course, with the variety, both colors and logos on there, and a 4-pack as well. It's all there at chatsports.com/Eagles masks. Scroll down below to the, or Eagles mask, link down below in the description box. Click on that to go ahead and pick up one of these face masks to stay safe and look good as you rep the Eagles. Tight ends, they only need 2. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are going to be your 2 tight ends set here. Some teams like to carry 3. And the Eagles, and as we will talk about with practice squad players later on in the video, there will be some practice squad tight ends, obviously, on the roster who could be called up at any time. But when you have great tight ends like Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, who are obviously 2 of the better tight ends in the National Football League, you just roll with these 2 guys. This one to me is very, very simple. Ertz 1, Goedert 2, but it's going to be a big year from Dallas Goedert. I've said that before. Ertz 2 years away from a new contract, but could be getting one as soon as the end of this offseason. So they're really trying to see what they get out of Dallas Goedert. So he's going to be a big-time target, as he was last year in the Philadelphia Carson Wentz-led offense. With that being said, out of all the possible receivers the Eagles have, and again, tight ends catch the football, wide receivers or wide receiver catch the football, who will lead the Eagles in total receiving yards this year. Will it be Alshon Jeffrey? Will it be Deshaun Jackson? Will it be Jalen Reagor? Will it be Zach Ertz? Type AJ for Alshon Jeffrey, DG for Deshaun Jackson, JR for Jalen Reagor, or ZE for Zach Ertz. Remember, Ertz has led the team in receiving every year but 2015, I think, going back the past 5 years. I think it might be somebody different, though. I think a wide receiver is going to break 1,000 yards, whether it's Jackson, Reagor, or somebody else. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. O-line has been the most beat up out of anybody, in terms of the overall position group. I think they keep 9, but this can very easily change. So your starting offensive line is going to look something like this. It'll be Matt Pryor, at least based on what's happened in training camp. Matt Pryor at left tackle, Isaac Seumalo at left guard, Jason Kelce at center. Jason Peters is going to stay at right guard. At least he has stayed at right guard ever since obviously the Brandon Brooks injury and then the Andre Dillard injury as well. And then Lane Johnson, when he's back from injury, will be ready to go for week 1, and he'll be the right tackle. And then, of course, they'll have Jordan Mailata as the backup left tackle. You have Jack Driscoll in there. Prince Tanga Winogo and Nate Urbay are going to be the backups there that can rotate in and be swing tackles or extra tight ends if they want to go ahead and go with the jumbo package. But this is the big concern in terms of what happened to the Eagles in training camp. Not a lot of injuries. They've had a couple, and a couple of them are, not so serious, like the Carson Wentz injury, the Reagor one just a couple of weeks. Obviously, Miles Sanders will be good to go for week 1, but the big injuries came on the offensive line with the 2 starters going out. And so now the questions will be, how well can they protect Carson Wentz going into week 1? But that's going to be the offensive line right there. It's a good group of backups. It's a strong group of backups, even though they're young. But I think they're going to be just fine, and they'll probably hold down the 4. That's my projection for the Eagles offense. Give this video a thumbs up. You think Philadelphia's going to have a top 10 offense in 2020? I think so. I've said this before. The Eagles will have a top 10 offense, even with a couple of injuries that we've already seen sustained at the offensive line and even at the wide receiver position. I still think they're going to be very, very good. They're going to run the ball well, and Carson Wentz, as we all know, is a fantastic quarterback. So I will like this video. You guys like it too. I think the Eagles will have a top 10 offense in 2020. Let's do linebackers. To me, nothing changes here. This is the same as the last one. Nathan Gary, TJ Edwards, and Duke Riley are probably going to go ahead and be your 3 starters day 1, but don't expect that to remain the same the course of the entire NFL season. Sean Bradley, obviously a later round draft pick out of Temple. He had a fantastic camp. Not a lot of news out of Davion Taylor. He wasn't making any big splashes, but he wasn't bad in camp as well. A mid-round pick for the Eagles here in 2020, but either one of those guys, I think, at some point is going to assume one of these linebacker roles just because the youngins are a little bit better than the starters, even though the starters are still young. This is the weakest group the Eagles have. We talked about this many, many times here on the channel. You guys know I'm not a big Nathan Gary fan. I'm not a big Duke Riley fan. I'm hoping that Sean Bradley can fill in at some point and be better than one of these 3 guys. But at the same time, if the 3 starters play well, I'm not going to complain because that's a good news and good thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Defensive line is pretty simple as well, in my opinion. We all know who's here. I think they keep 9. Graham, Barnett are going to be your 2 outside pass rushers, hopefully both ready to go for week 1. It'll be Cox and Hargrave, your 2 defensive tackles who will start, but obviously Malik Jackson will get rotated in there. Josh Sweat, to me, is going to be the big one to keep an eye on here because he's basically the number 2 DN behind the 2 starters. He's the first guy up as soon as Brandon Graham or Derek Barnett needs a rest, and I think he's going to play very, very well. He was a beast in training camp. Curry's had a nagging injury, but he's obviously going to make the team. Jannard Avery, thought he tore his ACL. He didn't. He's going to be out for an extended period of time. Could even start on the PUP list, but he's most likely going to be there, so I'm going to leave him on as a current roster spot. And then Hassan Ridgeway's been with Philadelphia for a while. I'm a good defensive tackle. The Eagles actually have a lot of very good undrafted free agent defensive linemen, and a lot of them will show up down below or a little later on in this video when we talk about the 16 guys they're going to keep on the practice squad. But that's your defensive line. That's probably going to be a top 5 defensive line in the entire National Football League. You have any surprise cuts before we go ahead and wrap this thing up with the secondary? Anyone you think is going to be a surprise cut by the Eagles? Give me that name down below. I'm going to scroll through and see if I agree with any one of them, and then we'll see if you guys are right. I'm just curious if you have a surprise cut here, which, of course, we'll know the answer when we get to Saturday. Cornerbacks, they got to keep a bunch because they've had problems at cornerback in the past, and the big question, of course, is will Sidney Jones make the roster? Now, you see right here, I do not have Sidney Jones making the roster, but at the same time, I would not be surprised if he did. Slay, Maddox, Douglas, Nickel, Roby-Coleman are obviously all locks. I think Cravon LeBlanc is a lock as well. And the question will be Craig James or Sidney Jones. Sidney Jones, a higher draft pick. He obviously has more talent, but he was out for a lot of training camp dealing with an injury. He's been up and down in his career. I've completely pivoted on my love for Sidney Jones, as you guys know, and I admitted here. So the question will be Craig James or Sidney Jones. I'm going to say Craig James for now because I think they're going to cut Sidney Jones, but don't be surprised if they give him one final year as a backup cornerback who can come in and play in a defense that he knows and understands, being in the Jim Schwartz defense the past couple of years. But I think at once Douglas might not make it. Douglas is going to make it this year. LeBlanc is going to make it this year. And obviously the starters are probably going to be Slay, Maddox, and Nickel Roby-Coleman there at the nickel, as you guys always kept telling me would eventually be what was going to happen. Safeties, they got a bunch of good ones. Rodney McLeod, Jalen Mills will be your two starters. Parks and Kayvon Wallace will be the backups. They didn't have the best camp in terms of everyone was hoping that Kayvon Wallace was going to be the next Brian Dawkins. It's like, slow down a little bit. It's going to take some time for him to become the next Brian Dawkins. He still is going to get some playing time with special teams. Will Parks as well. I mean, Jalen Mills was better than Will Parks the entire training camp. Graylin Arnold's been good, and he could be a practice squad guy here, but I think with the amount of roster spots they have, they're breaking it all down. I think Graylin Arnold out of Baylor is going to go ahead and be kind of that fifth guy. Obviously, a kick return specialist, probably a gunner on the punt team, but still could play safety if he were to need to. But overall, a very good summer, I should say, or a very good end of summer by Jalen Mills, who has solidified and had, like we said, competition in Will Parks and Kayvon Wallace, who were vying for that spot. Mills has held it down. He played very, very well, and I think he's going to start, obviously, as the Malcolm Jenkins replacement and probably play very, very well. Before we keep going here, be sure to go ahead and pick up your Eagles face mask coverings. One more time, chatsports.com/Eagles mask is the place to go ahead and pick these up. Again, just a ton of different flavors and varieties of masks, if you will, which we now wear every day, right? Like my mask is right behind the camera over there, and I got to put it back on as soon as I'm done here at work. It's just how it works, right? It's the new modern society we live in, so why not rep an Eagles one and go ahead and wear that and look good while you are at it. Specialist is simple, Elliott, Cameron Johnston, and Rick Lovato, although it will be a contract year for Johnston, so hopefully some deep punts there, pin him down inside the 20. Let me know what you guys think, though. If you agree or disagree in the comments, if any of these guys you think should be starters instead of practice squad guys are cut. I'm just curious to gauge what you guys think. It's hard to break down a roster. Well, let me just say this. I don't envy what Doug Peterson and the coaches in the front office have to do, because there are a lot of players that's like, yeah, I'd like to keep him. Like, he maybe could become a good player, but it's also like, well, we need an extra wide receiver, we need an extra cornerback, or whatever it is. It's tough to do. So that's my guess at it, and we'll find out if we are right on Saturday, and of course we'll break it all down, the official one on Saturday. So be sure to subscribe to Philadelphia Eagles Now. That way you guys are notified when that drops, and for the rest of the Eagles coverage nonstop all year long. There you go. All the time we have for today here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. I'm your host and leader, Thomas Mott, signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day.